Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a review on the TV series, The Survivors. So before I head into my thoughts and feelings on this Netflix TV series, The Survivors, I don't plan on having any sort of spoilers in this video because this is a show that is like a murder mystery, if you will. So yeah, you definitely need to go into this show not knowing what to expect. So I am definitely going to try my best and stay absolutely clear of any type of spoilers. The less you kind of know, the better. So yeah, let's get going. How did I feel about the TV show, The Survivors? As I already mentioned, this was on Netflix. It was a 6-episode series, which I think was a nice little perfect amount for this series, because it was starting to kind of reach a point that it almost felt like it was a little too long, because I'm almost wondering if they could have condensed it down to maybe just 5 episodes. But yeah, I do think the 6 was kind of just right. Any more would have been too much for this show. And it is based off of a book by Jane Harper under the same name. So, the plot that you need to know going into this TV show. 15 years ago, a storm devastated the coastal town of Evelyn Bay and took the lives of 3 young people. In the present, Kieran and Mia return, burdened by their guilt and survival, only to witness another murder. So yeah, you have this mystery kind of a couple different murders that have happened. 10 years ago, these 2 guys died tragically on like a boat accident, like during a rescue attempt. But at the same time, the body of a young, or well, no, not a body, because yes, she's missing. This other young girl at the same time, she went missing, but the focus was all on these young men and their tragic accident, and there was really no attention given to the young girl who went missing. So like I said, all that happens in 10 years ago in the past. So in the present, we have some characters returning. They've been away for a while and they're kind of coming back because there's like an anniversary now for that accident. And yeah, lo and behold, another murder happens. Another murder happens pretty much on the day of their arrival. So you got a lot going on in this show, and it all does connect, because I kept watching the show thinking, okay, how is the 10 years ago stuff and how is the current murder mystery, how is that all going to connect? And it does. So first off, what you also need to know about this show, it takes place in Australia. Yeah, guys, I was totally here for that. I'm so used to watching murder mysteries that either take place in America or they take place in like the UK. I don't really get to watch very many like Australian-based crime shows, so I was pretty thrilled that this was all set in Australia. It was all completely filmed in Australia, and it shows that this was filmed in Australia, because you definitely get those just gorgeous shots of just the natural beauty of Australia. There's all these beautiful shots of like the cliffside, all these beautiful shots of the ocean, and yeah, they're filming in like a real like coastal town, it looks like. So you're really just getting this wonderful nice vibe and atmosphere to this small town, Australian coastal town. So yeah, the aesthetic of this show, I guess, if you will, just absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and breathtaking. Australia is just a beautiful place in general. Now, how to recommend this show, if you're kind of debating whether or not you want to watch this show, if you're someone you just don't enjoy mystery, crime, thriller sort of things, this is definitely not going to be anything that appeals to you. But yeah, to compare this show to something else, I suppose, just for the hell of it, if you really enjoyed the British TV show Broadchurch, for instance, I think Broadchurch is a really good comparison to this show. The TV show Broadchurch, which starred like David Tennant and Olivia Colman, that show took place in like a little small British town, and they were like they were like a coastal town too, if I'm not mistaken, because yeah, like in that show there's like a body of a little boy, and was he murdered? Did he fall off the cliffs? What happened? So I think Broadchurch is a really good comparison to this show. There's a lot of things that are pretty similar to some degree. So if you enjoyed Broadchurch, I think there's a pretty good likely chance you might like this show as well. Now, yeah, that being said, I do think Broadchurch is definitely the far superior show. It's hard to beat out the incredible mystery elements of Broadchurch. But yeah, I think I think The Survivors is very relatable to that to some degree. As I said, this show takes place in a small Australian coastal town, and that's just it. It's a small town. It's one of those shows where, you know, it's so small that everybody knows each other. Everybody knows all of the scandal and gossip that goes down. You know, it's hard to keep secrets from anybody. So everybody knows everybody. You know, everybody's all up in everybody's business. You know, it's one of those type of shows, because that's just how small the town is, and how either close or distant some people are with one another. You know, so this show is definitely exploring this notion of, you know, like small town mentality. You know, when tragedy strikes a small town, how it affects everybody in that community, the grief that people feel, maybe some of the survivors' guilt that people feel. So yeah, this whole show is definitely the exploration of small town community grief, if you will, and this community who is haunted by the deaths of these 3 young people that occurred 10 years prior, and that it's still something that's affected them even 10 years after the fact. And as the title of this show is suggesting, you know, it's called The Survivors. It's definitely that exploration too of survivors' guilt, and it's even though the dead are dead, the living have to still go on living. So it's also this story of the people who are still alive, and how they're still kind of trying to function with their grief and loss. And yeah, how these characters are living with the ghosts of the dead, effectively. And that's kind of one of the more powerful messages I got from this series, is this whole idea of the ghosts of the past haunting people, you know, the ghosts of dead people, you know, not literally ghosts, you know, the ghosts of the dead kind of really haunting certain characters, and people having to live in the shadow of the people who died, you know, living in the shadow of the people who died, because yeah, like especially the 2 young men who died, they were beloved guys within the community, and their deaths really struck the community hard. And yeah, other characters kind of having to live within that shadow. Can they compete? You know, they're competing with ghosts, essentially. They're competing with dead people, and their own lives are struggling as a result, as they're trying to constantly prove themselves, like, hey, I'm alive. You know, they're not alive, but I am still alive. But yet I am still being treated as unloved, or I'm treated as being small. You know, so that's like a really powerful thing I got from this show. And for the most part, the characters, I did really like the characters. There were characters I liked more than others, definitely, for sure, because you have the characters who are kind of really instantly really likable, I think, and then you have other characters you got to warm up to, and then there's just other characters it's like, oh Jesus Christ, I hate these people. You know, there's a lot of, I did find myself just being really irritated with quite a number of characters in this show, but yeah, the ones that I did really like, I liked. And even though this is a small town, you still have a large number of suspects. Because like I said, you have the 2 guys who died in the boat accident 10 years ago, but at the same time, a young girl went missing. So you have that mystery of who possibly murdered that young girl. You know, her body was never found, but many people suspect she was possibly murdered, since I hadn't found a body, you know. So you have that whole thing. And then, like I said, here in the present, 10 years after the fact, there's another murder that happens. So you have this compelling, intriguing thing going on. Are these 2 different murders? Are they connected? Or is it all just really misleading? Or is it 2 separate things? You know, you have to kind of work that out over the course of this story, if there is connection or not. Yeah, again, you have a huge cast of characters in this show, and every single person is a suspect. You know, any good murder mystery show, you should have a good number of suspects, because you don't ever want anybody to look overly obvious and suspect, you know. So I really appreciated that this had a fairly large cast, and just about every single person looked terribly suspect and guilty. And I really enjoyed episode after episode trying to, you know, figure out who possibly was connected with what. And I will say this without spoiling anything. I did figure out who the killer, I suppose. I guess I'll word it that way. I did figure out fairly early in the show who the end game killer, the end game reveal or whatever. I figured it out probably within about maybe 2-3 episodes who the reveal was going to be. And so it was kind of this thing of me, since I was kind of really suspect of this one person, it was kind of me kind of watching and really paying specific attention to this one character, which really kind of enhanced my suspicions even more, really focusing on this one character. So yeah, unfortunately, I did guess the reveal at the end. Now I didn't guess like all of the little itty bitty details, you know, there was like no way for me to kind of guess all those little itty bitty details, but I guessed the end killer reveal, if you will. And I'm just really curious if other people did too. I'm seriously, I'm very, very curious, or if it was just me, because I've watched so many shows like this, you know, that's kind of just it. I've watched so many shows like this, so many movies like this, and it's kind of reached a point that I am usually able to figure out the person really quickly. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I'm definitely really curious. Anybody else, if you watch a show, how quickly you guessed the end, or if it remained a surprise and a shock to you the entire time. Because it is, once again, just having watched so many of these shows over the course of my life, it's like you start to understand how narrative structure works in these type of shows, because, you know, at the end of like episode 1 on any given show like this, at the end of episode 1, it's going to set up your entire cast, and your entire cast is going to look like obvious suspects. And then in episode 2, you're going to get someone being called in by the police, and it's always going to usually be the most obvious person. You know, it's always going to be the most obvious person. So that person's always, that person gets immediately questioned by the police, and they're usually never the killer, you know. So then each episode you move to a different character, you know, a character or characters, just depending on how many people an episode is trying to get through, you know, through the suspect list. And of course that starts, you know, chipping away at all the suspects, and until you do kind of get to the last kind of couple people that's like, okay, which one is it? So that's why I was able to pretty quickly figure out the end result of this show. Not that it ruined it for me, because I still really enjoyed it. So let's get into this cast list really quickly. I'm just going to run down everybody really quickly so you can get an idea of the types of characters in this show. Now, let me start here first with Charlie Vickers. You guys, I'm not going to lie, I totally discovered this show and watched this show because I found out Charlie Vickers was going to be in it, and I freaking love him. He plays the character of Sauron over on the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power TV show on Amazon, and he's like one of my favorite things on that show, to be quite honest. So Charlie Vickers was definitely the big draw and appeal for me even bothering to check out this show. I'm a little embarrassed about that, but hey, what can you do? The man is good looking, okay? But anyway, Charlie Vickers, he plays the main character of Kieran Elliott. Yeah, his brother Finn is one of the guys that died 10 years prior. So that's how he has his personal connection. He is trying to compete within the shadow of his dead brother's ghost, effectively, 10 years after the fact, trying to still kind of get the love of his mother. He feels unloved by her, you know, because she blames him for the death, because the rescue attempt, his brother going out there for the rescue attempt was for Kieran himself. Kieran was out there in the ocean doing something he shouldn't have been doing, and he got stuck during a storm. So his mother blames him for the death of his older brother. So yeah, Charlie Vickers. I love Charlie Vickers as the lead in this. He's in every single episode. He probably has the most screen time out of everybody. He's leading man material, I think, you know, because like in the Rings of Power TV show, for instance, even though he is playing the big, huge main villain of that show, I don't know if you would necessarily call him the main character, you know. It is more of a show that's like about supporting characters, you know, supporting actors. But yeah, Charlie Vickers in this show, he is downright the lead of this show, and he definitely makes for really good leading man material, I think. And I just really liked what he did with the character of Kieran. Like I said, he's come back 10 years after the fact, you know, on the anniversary of his brother's death, and he's just trying to compete within the shadow of his dead brother's ghost, effectively. And he's coming back to this small town community that blame him for the death of his brother, you know, because his brother was so beloved. So he's trying to compete with that, and he's still trying to put his own life together. He's trying to move on. He's trying to cope. And yeah, he just has just such a wonderfully quiet performance, I think, throughout this whole thing. And it just builds and builds. You know, because then when you get to kind of some of the last couple episodes where he just can't take things anymore, you know, he's tired of competing within the shadow of his dead brother. You know, he has such a wonderful outburst kind of later in the season that's just so wonderfully compelling and emotional, and yeah, Charlie Vickers just pulls it off so incredibly well. And then playing Kieran's like his partner, if you will, because I was never quite sure if they were actually married, because I just kept referring to each other as partner, so I don't think they were married. But yeah, playing his partner is Yurin Ha. Her character is Mia Chang. Yurin Ha, you guys, she is going to be a big thing here probably in the next year or so, because she's going to be one of the main characters in this upcoming season of Bridgerton. Bridgerton, what, season 4, right? So this is her kind of doing this type of show, and yeah, she's going to be, I think, a big popular thing when the next season of Bridgerton comes out. So I definitely, not only did I want to watch this for Charlie Vickers, obviously, but I wanted to watch this show for I believe her name is pronounced Yurin Ha. I definitely wanted to watch it for her as well before she does pop up in Bridgerton. You know, I want to have something else to watch her in and enjoy her in before Bridgerton happens and she becomes like super popular and big, you know. Her character, Mia Chang, like I said, she's Kieran's partner. They have like a newborn baby, and she was actually friends 10 years ago with the girl who went missing. You know, like I said, you had the guys who died in the boat accident, but also at the same time, a young girl went missing. So yeah, Mia, she was friends with that girl. And I really loved what Yurin Ha was doing with the character of Mia. I really liked her and her chemistry with Charlie Vickers and whatnot. Yeah, Mia, you definitely get the idea Mia is kind of a bit of like a shy, soft-spoken girl. She really kind of has to kind of force herself to kind of go out there sometimes to be a little bit more out there. Again, because there's like this wonderful part where her and Kieran first arrive back in town. They're going to a bar to hang out with their old friends and classmates and whatnot, and she's kind of really concerned about a top that she's wearing, because she doesn't know if the top is like too slutty, as she puts it. She feels like she needs to be more conservative or something, but she looks really cute in the top either way, you know, but she feels like it's too much on someone like her, you know. So she's kind of that type of character that she doesn't know kind of the power of her own beauty, you know. But yeah, she like the character of Kieran, you know, she's still struggling with the death of her friend 10 years ago, and what happened to her. You know, is her friend dead? Is she alive? Is she missing? Did she run away? You know, nobody knows. And then we have Jessica DeGao, who plays the character of Olivia Birch, and she is the sister of the girl who went missing 10 years ago. So again, the survivor's guilt, you know, living in the shadow of her sister. Yeah, I really like Jessica DeGao in this. I watched her earlier this year in the Couple Next Door. I think I probably preferred her performance in The Couple Next Door over this show, but it was still a really great performance in here, and I just liked her kind of quiet intensity as well. That's kind of just it. I feel like a lot of the characters and the acting, it's like they all have this quiet, stoic intensity to them. And then playing Kieran's mom and dad, we have Robin Malcolm and Damien Garvey. Yeah, Kieran's mother, good lord, she is a piece of work. She was one of the characters I was just the most irritated with. Let me just be blunt about it. And then yeah, Kieran's dad, in the meantime, he's suffering with dementia. And the fact that his dad is suffering with dementia, that is definitely a big plot point in this show. you guys. And then just for some other cast of characters, we have Martin Sachs, Tom Green, Julian Weeks. They play the characters of Julian Shawn and Liam Gilroy. They are related in some fashion to one of the other guys that was in the tragic boating accident 10 years ago. So they're a big part of everything going on. They're part of the suspect list. And of course, any murder mystery, you got to have your detectives. So we have Miriam Smith and Johnny Carr. They are both playing the leading detectives, going around investigating, you know, each and every suspect. Let me tell you, I love the two detectives on this show, because I feel like the two detectives, they were the most just rational and sane of some of the cast, because sometimes some of the other people would just go all crazy outside of it, you know. There's even one part that was super hilarious in this show, one of the most hilarious parts of this show, because it's a really dark and serious show, obviously dealing with murder and crime. But there was this one hilarious part where during one of the anniversary celebrations for the death of, you know, the guys that happened like 10 years ago or whatever, during one of the special anniversary ceremonies, there's like a big fight that breaks out. The entire community gets into it. A big fight ensues, and then, yeah, the detectives are off to the side just watching this whole thing play out, and the one female detective, she says something like, "What is wrong with this town? What is wrong with these people?" And that was my sentiment exactly. I was like, yes, what is wrong with this town? What is wrong with these people? So that is pretty much all I wanted to say about this show. I feel like I didn't really review it properly. Did I review it properly? I feel like there's just something about it that I'm missing. For the most part, I did really enjoy this this mini-series, I guess you shall call it, because it's not intended to have like another season or anything. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think 6 episodes was just enough. It could have been maybe down to 5. I think it could have been condensed down to maybe 5 episodes, but I think the 6 was just enough. I was really intrigued by the murder mystery elements. Like I said, even though I figured out pretty quickly who the ultimate killer, we shall say, is, even though I figured that out pretty quick, it didn't ruin my enjoyment, because if anything, it kind of made me zone in on that specific character and kind of watch more, you know, pay attention to certain things going on. And like I said, I definitely recommend this if you like this type of show, you know, murder mysteries. If you like something like Broadchurch, it's probably the closest thing to compare this show to. For the love of God, if you love Charlie Vickers like I do, just watch it for him alone. And once again, just the, you know, the atmosphere of Australia, that was what really worked for me, you know, just have this different location, like I said, because I'm so used to watching murder mysteries that take place in America or in Great Britain. So yeah, I love this being taking place in Australia, showcase the gorgeous nature of Australia. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on The Survivors. In the comments below, did you guys happen to watch this show on Netflix? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you plan on watching it? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you might like these other videos. Bye guys.